Mistress Vania Changes Jobs, Episode 17. Roger was starting to smell. Riko took a bucket and a sponge. She washed him with the care and attention usually reserved for a compact hatchback at a car wash. Roger lay on the ground to limit the chances of him slipping on a soapy floor. Riko wore her overalls and knee-high Wellington boots. She moved Roger around with gentle kicks, whereby he would roll in the direction indicated. With every inch of his body cleaned, Roger was hosed down. "This soap makes my skin feel so soft and fresh," said Roger, making conversation. "Is it something special?" "It is dishwashing liquid," said Riko. "There was nothing else. It cuts through grease and kills lice." "Cool," said Roger, not bothered that he was being treated like a dirty pot. "Is Mistress Vania coming down today?" Riko did not answer. Instead, she pointed the hose directly at Roger's head. It was a moot point, as within seconds of the question being asked, Mistress Vania appeared at the top of the stairs. She returned to her original colour scheme of black latex. Roger guessed the red suit was being cleaned, most likely by Riko. Being latex, they would not breathe like other fabrics. Roger was excited by the sheer sweatiness of it. To sweat inside a rubber suit was part of the appeal. "You are like an animal, Roger Skye," said Mistress Vania, her high-heel boots clicking on the tiled floor. "You eat strange, supposedly inedible pizza, have your nipples fried with electricity, and your skin absorb mineral clay from the seabed. Essentially, your body absorbs mud. I haven't spared you any quarter. I have been cruel to you, yet you remain as docile as a dairy cow. Your greatest ambition is to eat garbage and consume the mindless swill that is the Internet." "This is so cool," said Roger, pushing back his dripping wet hair and failing to stand up after 3 attempts. "It's like stuff on the Internet, only real." "Much of what's on the Internet is real to some extent," said Mistress Vania. "The distinction being it's happening to someone else. At least you have grasped the idea that this experience is happening to you. So much of the Internet is voyeuristic. I sometimes wonder if people know what real human experience is like. They've been online for so long they've forgotten, or they're so young that they never learnt in the first place." "I bet you have some bad-ass thing you're going to do to me today," said Roger. "Riko is going to tie you up," said Mistress Vania. This was supposed to frighten Roger, but it had a different effect. He was annoyed. "You've already done that," he said. "I want something new." "It is new," said Riko. "I'm going to try suspension bondage. You'll be lifted off the ground. I was worried because you are so very heavy, but now I think I've developed a way that will be safe. You will be suspended by 8 different points to distribute the weight, much better than the usual 3 or 4 points." This time Roger was fully conscious while being bound by Riko. Riko would reach round Roger's body. Each time the rope would be precisely positioned and pressed into the flesh before continuing around behind him into a gridded pattern of intersecting knots. "What's with all this tying up, anyway?" asked Roger. "I have studied under a rope master," said Riko. "In Tokyo there are nightclubs where shibari, the art of sadomasochistic binding, is practiced. Don't worry, it is very safe. With amateurs it is dangerous. Circulation is very important. It must hurt, but not harm. No permanent damage allowed." "They do this in nightclubs?" said Roger in wonder. "Not all nightclubs," said Riko, continuing to bind Roger as she spoke. "It is an industry. It is Fuzoku, the world of erotic entertainment in Japan. Rope artists are very skilled. Bondage is a very old tradition in Japan. From 1400 to 1700, samurais used to bind their prisoners to demonstrate their deafness. Very old, very skilful. With all the ropes attached, the 8 loose ends were combined and woven beautifully into a chain on a winch. The laws of physics worked in Riko's favour. She pulled with the force that all her body could manage. The slack in the rope was gone. Riko pulled on the chain still more, and gradually Roger's body was lifted slightly, so that only the tips of his toes were touching the ground. One more heave on the chain, and Roger was off the ground completely. He tilted slightly forward, as his centre of gravity changed in relation to the rope. He swung gently as the heavy wooden beam above his head creaked. By way of the winch, the beam now took the load of Roger's weight. Riko pulled again on the chain, lifting Roger a full 2 feet off the ground. Mistress Vania took a short black leather whip. She struck Roger across the back of his slack legs. She would have liked to strike his back, but the elaborate bindings acted as protection. Mistress Vania walked around Roger as he hung. The sight of his stomach protruding between the ropes was too tempting. She swung the whip with the full action of her arm, stepping into the blow to allow the motion of her entire body to be converted into energy transferred through the strands of the leather. The bondage was painful, but the act of being suspended made the whipping from Mistress Vania intensely painful. It took Roger by surprise. In his panic he struggled, but this made the bondage even more painful. "Why are you doing this?" cried Roger. "You said it yourself. Beating me won't make me thin." "I punish you because I can," said Mistress Vania, in her usual impassive voice. "I punish you because you deserve it." "I don't deserve anything," said Roger, trying to sound defiant. "Being fat is not a crime." Mistress Vania replied with actions. She swung her whip another 9 times. By the end of it, Roger was whimpering. Mistress Vania had a glow in her cheeks from the exertion. Roger could see tiny beads of sweat forming around her neck. She was smiling with a look of excitement in her eyes. This was not for Roger. This was for her own personal satisfaction. "Now we are going to feed you," said Mistress Vania. "Not another healthy pizza," moaned Roger, gently swinging by the ropes. "The last one made me do an unforgettable monster dump. It was nasty." "It is not pizza," said Riko, producing a plate of appetizing food. "It is what Mistress Vania and I eat. It is okonomiyaki, omelette with egg, crab, squid, and prawn." "Hey, I know those things," said Roger. "They're like fritter things, with zigzag patterns of mayonnaise and sauce." "It is not a fritter," said Riko, slapping Roger squarely across the face. Roger yelled in pain. He was not expecting a beating from Riko. "Mistress," said Riko, "what is a fritter?" "Fritters aren't okonomiyaki," replied Mistress Vania quietly. "Hit him again. That last comment was just impertinent." "They're really tasty," said Roger. "What's the catch? There's always a catch with you guys." "It is what I call Fletcherism under bondage," said Mistress Vania. "It is the system of eating developed by Horace Fletcher." "The great masticator!" cried Riko. "Huh?" said Roger. "The system works on the assumption that each mouthful of food should be chewed 32 times," explained Mistress Vania. "That was over 100 times a minute. Fletcher believed that the more energy could be taken from less food, the progress of digestion was improved, and greater health and vigor could be achieved. Even liquids were chewed in order to achieve a good mix of saliva from the mouth." "Never heard of it," said Roger. "It sounds really lame. I like to eat food that really takes no chewing at all, like pizza. I just bite a piece off and swallow." "We'll have none of that," said Mistress Vania. "Either you'll be Fletcherizing, or the food stops." "I still haven't heard of it," said Roger. "If it's such a good idea, why isn't it on daytime television, like all the other groundbreaking diet techniques?" "For its time it was very well received," said Mistress Vania. "It even had celebrated devotees like Mark Twain and John D. Rockefeller. If done correctly, it is said the excreta should be inoffensive and low in protein." Taking a spoon of the Japanese omelette, Roger was fed his first mouthful. He swallowed it instantly as he hung from the ropes. "You did it wrong!" shouted Riko, jumping up and down on the spot. "You're supposed to chew 32 times," said Mistress Vania. I said if you didn't do as you were told, then there would be no more food." "No more food," said Riko, echoing the sentiment. "Well, sorry," said Roger in mock apology. "I was hungry. I'm always hungry. That, for the viewers at home, is why I'm fat." The prospect of missing out had got Roger riled. His suspension from the beams in the ceiling did not detract from his anger. "See," said Mistress Vania, pointing to Roger with an extended hand. "When it comes to food he is irrational. He knows that failing to Fletcherize, failing to chew 32 times, with results in no more food, yet he swallows it whole like an unknowing hound. Stupid. Simply stupid." "We will punish him," said Riko, taking from the table a large wooden paddle. "No," said Mistress Vania, shaking her head. "He seems too stupid to punish." "Humiliation," said Riko. "We will eat in front of him, while he has none. This will be worse for him than a beating." Mistress Vania considered this suggestion. "No," she said, "I don't like that idea either. I was keen to see Fletcherism in action. I am going to do something I would normally consider foolish and weak. I'm going to give a submissive a second chance. Now, Roger, if I give you another mouthful, will you promise to chew 32 times?" "Sure," said Roger. The second mouthful went into Roger's mouth. Riko looked like a mother bird feeding a giant baby chick. The important difference was Riko was using a spoon. The second mouthful disappeared as quickly as the first. Roger neglected to chew at all. Far from being angry, Mistress Vania looked on thoughtfully. It was as though she clearly anticipated the outcome of giving Roger a second chance. "We said no chewing means no more food," said Mistress Vania, now face to face with Roger. "You like food, yet you jeopardize your prospect of getting more. You are your own worst enemy. Your stupidity, impatience, and lack of thought are breathtaking." "That's nice stuff," said Roger, appearing not to understand Mistress Vania. "What's in it? Can you buy it from the store, or is it homemade? You can't beat homemade. I like it." "Like it?" said Mistress Vania. "I could be feeding you rabbit droppings. I'm surprised you had it in your mouth long enough to taste it." "It is okonomiyaki," said Riko, "with egg, squid, crab, and prawn. I made it myself from fresh ingredients. Very fresh, very wholesome." "I am patient to a point," said Mistress Vania calmly. "However, in your case, I have nothing left in the tank. The patient's gas tank gauge is sitting on empty. All my old S&M clients are mad. At least the ones with internet connections are mad. That's given me pause for thought, and I decided to go online and do some research, based on the bizarre things they were requesting. I didn't like much what I saw, but it gave me plenty of ideas to draw on when considering what to do with fools like you. For a moment there was a serious consideration of getting very scatological with you, but that would be the spiteful act of an angry woman. We dominatrix don't get angry. If you make me angry, then you are controlling me, which is wrong. It's definitely putting the cart before the horse. I am interested in controlling and dominating you. No one controls me. So I have a much better idea. Riko here is going to wrap a length of rope around your neck. She will pull it tight. I'll put a spoonful of the omelette in your mouth." "What happens then?" said Roger, a frightened pitch taking over his voice. "Either you chew 30 times, at which point we slacken the rope so that you can swallow," said Mistress Vania, breathing the words into Roger's ear, "or you suffocate while Riko and I are waiting for you to Fletcherize." From behind, Riko looped the rope around Roger's throat and pulled it tight like a garrote. Thus strangled, Mistress Vania fed Roger a mouthful of the omelette. Roger chewed furiously to complete the 32 chews before he ran out of air. His face went red, and then something approaching purple. With each chew, Mistress Vania counted it off. 31, 32, said Mistress Vania finally. Riko slackened the rope. Instead of swallowing, Roger exhaled, spraying Mistress Vania in a finely chewed mess of Japanese omelette. The pieces of crab, prawn, and cabbage stood out in clear contrast to Mistress Vania's black latex suit. Not only was it on her suit, but it was also in her hair, on her face, and the bare skin of her arms. Roger let out a cry of sheer terror. Riko looked from Mistress Vania back towards Roger. It was unprecedented. She felt it was certainly the death of Roger. At the very least, Mistress Vania would beat him until her arm ached, and then, if Roger was really lucky, she would leave him in the cellar to starve to death. While Mistress Vania looked on with disbelief at the combination of spit and masticated mush running down her tightly packed natural breasts, she loved latex. She loved it to be clean and shiny. "Hose me down," said Mistress Vania to Riko. The deliberate calmness in her voice contrasted with the expression on her face. Riko reacted instantly. Setting the hose to medium pressure, she was able to gently wash down her mistress. The water beaded on the black rubber, reflected the hard light, and resembled drops of mercury. By the end of it, Mistress Vania's elegant rubber-clad body was dripping wet. So was her hair. Trickles of water ran down her face and sat on her red, long-last lipstick. Roger thought that what he was seeing was amazingly hot. He was going to suggest that Riko filmed it and uploaded it onto the internet, but a feeling of throbbing fear got the better of him. "Sorry," said Roger, his voice rasping from nearly being strangled. "It's just really hard. All that chewing hurts my jaw. You know what I mean?" "Actually," said Mistress Vania, "I'm not sure I do know. Riko, have you ever practiced Fletcherism as a method of eating?" "No," said Riko. "I saw it in a documentary." "Well, neither have I," said Mistress Vania. "Riko suggested it. We looked into it and found the Wikipedia article, and it seems sound enough in principle. More time chewing, less time eating. Can't go wrong, in theory." Roger's mouth hung open. "Come on, Riko," said Mistress Vania. "Let's try it ourselves." Both of them each took a spoonful of the Japanese omelette. They each chewed in a very deliberate fashion, counting in their minds as they went. At around 20 chews, Mistress Vania wanted to swallow what was in her mouth. Her chewing became laboured and slower until finally she reached the required number of chews. She swallowed and pulled an unpleasant face. "It generates an enormous amount of saliva," said Mistress Vania, taking another piece of omelette and swallowing it after 3 chews. "You'll lose the taste and the texture after about 10 chews. It takes the joy out of eating. It's kind of a mechanical, joyless attitude to food, all rather Victorian." "I don't like it either," said Riko. "Only for those who enjoy suffering." "Agreed," said Mistress Vania. "And that's a group of people I don't count myself as being among. The whole practice died out. Did it say why?" "It was replaced by the craze of calorie counting," said Riko. "You're right," said Mistress Vania to Roger. "It makes your jaw hurt, and it's pretty dumb." Mistress Vania turned and ascended the stairs. Roger asked Riko, "Are you going to eat the rest of that omelette?"